It's your boy, B. Ben Israel, the People's Champ. How y'all doing? How are y'all doing? Happy Thursday, March 24th, 2022. Shalom, Israel. Shalom, black people. How we doing today? A little cloudy here in Charlotte, North Carolina. 70 degrees, though, so I'll take it. Cut my intro a little short. We're going to get into it a little bit. It's not going to be too long. I didn't really make a bunch of notes, so I'm going to go off the head with this one. But y'all know I got bars, so we're going to work through it. Strap in with me. Let's get this disclaimer in, though. You don't want to be here? Don't be here. I don't know why that's a hard thing. You don't like me. You don't like what I'm saying. What I've said before, what I did to you or supposedly did to you, all of that crap goes right out the door. Don't be here. Move around. Keep it moving. Plenty of places to be out here in these YouTube streets. Plenty of places to be. Lots going on in the world. We're going to talk a little bit about the Ketanji Brown Jackson hearing and a couple other things. Give me a couple of minutes, y'all. Wait a minute. Let me get myself together. I apologize for that, y'all. I had to get myself situated for a minute. So we're going to talk about the Brown Jackson hearing, and we're going to also talk to, and I'm not sure about her name, but I think her name is Ajune Ellis. She was in King Richard with Will Smith. She played his wife in King Richard. She also played Marianne in Ray. She's done a couple of things over the year, but she said something very interesting recently. We'll talk about both of those things. So I was talking to somebody from the silent generation, real old folks, and and I'm always fascinated on different perspectives, how people view things that's going on in the world. So I was in this conversation was kind of forced on me because I didn't initiate it, but they were watching the confirmation hearings and they or this person said, I'm watching the confirmation hearings and made it a point to go, this is historic. Don't you think it's historic? Well, y'all know I got a problem with my mouth. So I paused before I responded. And they asked again, you don't think it's historic? No, I don't. And before I could explain my thinking, they cut me off and almost went on the attack. Typically, we as black people or older black people do this. Typically, men. I'm gonna get into men's ass, some old men's ass for a minute. They do this when you question their thinking, or not even question their thinking, but you have an alternative thought process of what they think about, they get angry. And as if someone who's two generations away from them is supposed to see the world exactly through their eyes. And I just I find that astounding because a lot has happened in the last 70 years. Lots of changes. We've had two, actually, we're into the fourth generation away from them. You got silent generation, baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and now Zoomers. What's that? Five? That's five generations. We've all had, as a group of people or different various groups of people, we see the world different. We have different world experiences. The world has changed. Going back to the silent generation, most of them are in retirement age. If they're working little part-time jobs to stay busy, but they're at the retirement age. They're in their 70s. And for the most part, they're very isolated from what's going on in the world. They know the world as it affects them, but most of them don't even leave the house. They don't talk to the younger generations. Not an intelligent conversation. They talk at the younger generations. This is what y'all need to do. This is y'all's problem. We all got grandparents. We've all had these conversations. They sent us to school because they wanted us to, quote unquote, be more educated than they were. So when we have that benefit of the education and we try to wouldn't be regurgitate, but share our educational experience with them, they reject it. I find that interest. And it's kind of like if you tell your child to go clean up the room and they come back and say, Mommy, Daddy, I cleaned up the room. And you have no interest in the very thing you just told them to do. I find that interesting. So this individual, I had to remind him because shame, insults, guilt need to be right. That's not a women. That's not only a phenomenon that affects women. That affects men too. And these old men are very good at that. Who do you think taught their daughters? Shame, insults, guilt, they need to be right. Old men hate being wrong. And what do they do immediately when you start proving them wrong? Well, I've been on the earth before you was born, and I've been doing this, and I fought in the war 100 years ago, and all that nonsense, which has nothing to do with what's going on right now. This person I was speaking to was born in 1944. And I tried to communicate this to him. At 19, when he was 10 years old, that would have been 1954. The world was a different place when he was 10 years old. Black people were getting married at a rate of 90+% back then. In today's world, it's less than 25%. That's a different cultural phenomenon. We had communities. They grew up in communities and in neighborhoods. And it took a village and all of that kind of stuff. Generation X is really the last generation to have any form of that. The millennials don't know about that. That's not their world. So we can't speak to them. Even for me, speaking to a millennial, they don't have that understanding of what it meant to grow up in a neighborhood the way we did. They just grew up around Black people, but it wasn't a functioning neighborhood. I'm getting off on a tangent. But going forward, so politically, Black people only started getting in politics for Obama. Most Black people didn't pay attention to politics before Obama. Even during the Clinton years, we liked Clinton, but we liked Clinton because he went on Arsenio Hall. He was cool. He played the saxophone. He had a little swag for a white boy. We loved Bill Clinton. And the economy was phenomenal during that time. Most of us was in high school and middle school during those years. But we didn't pay attention to politics. We didn't study politics. We didn't study economics. That's new, even for the old folks. They read the newspaper, but newspapers are propaganda. That was the first form of propaganda. That's what they want you to know, not necessarily what's going on. Well, in today's world, it's not the newspaper that functions that way. It's CNN and MSNBC, and if you're on the right wing, it's Fox, it's Newsmax, it's Joe Rogan, it's Tucker Carlson. That's where we as Black people get our information from TV. TV has been raising us and programming us. Most people learn about relationships not through their parents, through the TV. That's where you see somebody together for the first time functioning. Because most of our children are growing up in single family houses now. In school, they don't even see a Black man in authority until high school, probably. So that means from kindergarten to ninth grade, there's no Black male is in leadership from their perspective in today's world. So this silent generationer thought it was so newsworthy and so historic and groundbreaking that Brown Jackson is being going through her confirmation hearings. The only thing that is pageantry. Nothing more. The Republicans don't have enough votes to stop her from being confirmed. She will be confirmed. Now, let me put this disclaimer out because I get accused of hating black women because of what I'm about to say, and this is going to sting. However, I'm going to tell the truth. I don't give a shit about nobody's feelings. The woman is qualified. She is a federal judge, and she has a better judiciary record than most of the judges in the Supreme Court. That is true. Unmistakably true. But that's not why she is being nominated and confirmed. That's not why. She's there because of political games. Joe Biden came out and said, I'm going to pick a black woman. He didn't say, I'm going to pick the best woman. He didn't say, I'm going to pick the best person. He specifically said, because he talks too much and he's known for his gaffes, he says the quiet part out loud. He should have never said nothing. He should have just said, hey, I'm going to look into it and we're going to pick the best person and then pick a black woman. That's what he should have did. But because he's Joe Biden and he talks too much, he said what he wasn't supposed to say. He played in poker, he tipped his hand. That's what they call it. You got your cards up like this, he tipped his hand so everybody else could see what he was doing. He does that all the time. He did that during the Obama years. Again, he should have kept his cards close to his chest, took a little peek, and then made his move, and he would have got better results. Heck, I would have supported him. But because he's a politician and he likes to play political games, and he was looking for a win so desperately because he's been struggling with Corona. He's been struggling with the economy. He's got that shadow from Donald Trump still lingering. He's scared of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is still lingering around out there. So he needed a win. Because everything was bad. So what did he do? He dug out the old Democrat playbook. We're going to turn to black women and let black women save us. Because that's what white men have been doing for 500 years in this country. Every time shit gets fucked up, they run to black women to save them. Tell me I'm lying. Go back to slavery. They couldn't take care of the kids and their families. So what did they do? Because the white woman didn't know how to cook. She didn't know how to raise kids. She didn't know how to do nothing but sit there and drink tea on the porch. So what did they do? They went and got Big Mammy from out the field and brought her in the house to cook and clean and even breastfeed the kids. That didn't end in slavery in 1865. That continued for the next 100 years during Reconstruction. What was the number one job that black women had during Reconstruction? Taking care of white folks. Y'all seen the movie The Help? That's what that was about. All of the women went there every morning and going into different houses and cooking and cleaning. This is the history. Well, flash forward to 1970. What did they do again? Because they had to break down the civil rights movement. So they came running to black women and they gave them feminism. And we're going to give you all this education, all these governmental programs, and housing, and career advancement through the corporations and through the government. We're going to do all of these things for y'all. Y'all got to do something for us. So what did the black woman give the white man in return? Cheap labor. And that's been continuing ever since. The number one consumer in this country, demographically speaking, well, black people are the number one consumers, but when you look at black people, it's the woman. Women spend more, they buy more cars, they buy more clothes, they buy more beauty supplies, they buy the groceries. Women are in control of the finances. That's always been the case because black men historically weren't educated. Those old men that because the trope is, oh, men today ain't as good as the men of yesteryears. That's not true. Those men weren't shit back in the day. They couldn't even read because they didn't need to read. They had an eighth grade education at best, and they went into the factories and they worked in factories all their life. That's what they did. But who made all of that possible? Big Mama did. Big Mama got Big Daddy up every day, ironed the shirt, woke him up, ironed the shirt, gave him his coffee, sent him out the door. He went to work. He had to move a box, push a button, pull a lever. He didn't have to think. He came home. Big Mama fed him dinner, cleaned him up, sent his ass to bed. She let him watch a little Jeopardy and Cosby Show, and then she sent him to bed. Tell me this is not our lives, people. So that whole trope that black women today have more education is false. They've always had education. Look at the historically black colleges. Majority of those colleges started out as all women schools because that's who was going to school. The men couldn't afford to go to school. They had to stay home. They had to work. They had to work the sharecropping in the South. In the North, they had to work in the factories. But the farmers and the fathers, the black fathers, wanted their daughters to be educated. They got accounting degrees, secretarial skills, home economics degrees, those kind of things. So they were educated. At that time and prior to 1970, the black man was the driving force of cheap labor in this country. But Zaddy was always looking to destroy the black male image, but to do so, he had to find a new economic source. He had to be able to replace that labor. So, partially, he did that with black women. Because now you can count the black woman 3 times on the demographics. A woman, a black woman, and a black person. Whereas a black man, you only count them once. So it looks good for the statistics. Then they tried to do something a little bit different. They first tried it with the Cuban, when Castro freed all the Cubans and they came running over here and flooding Florida. See, Florida was an experiment for the rest of the country. And the Democrats thought, we're going to give all these Cubans a bunch of resources that we had been given to black women. We're going to divert some of that over here because we got a new voter base. We got new niggas now, and they're going to rock with us. Well, the Cubans did that for a couple of decades, about 2 decades. And then once they started getting their economic prosperity, they switched from Democrats to Republicans. So now when you look at South Florida, those same Cubans, those Latinos, right? The Cuban ones, you can't even tell them apart from a white person. The only sign that they're Hispanic in origin now is their last names. They'll still have the Cruz or the Rodriguez or some kind of Hispanic last name. They kept those. But just looking at them, Cuban women dye their hair blondes more than anybody. They vote heavily with the Republican Party down there in Florida. They use their language to box out other communities of people for their own economic gain. So in Florida, those jobs historically that have been run by black women and black men are now run by Hispanic women and men. They enacted laws that you can't even do certain jobs unless you speak Spanish. So the Democrats said, hell no, we're not going to let that happen to the rest of the country. We're not going to let that happen. So that's why that Miami particular is kind of unique. It's not like the rest of the country or even the rest of the East Coast. Miami is kind of a bubble, much like New York is a bubble for Puerto Ricans. But Puerto Ricans tend to stick close by black people more so than their Cuban cousins. So the Mexicans. So in the mid to late 90s, they had the same game plan. We need more cheap labor because black women have more education and they're not going to do pick cotton and they're not going to pick oranges and shit no more. They're working in offices. They have careers now. So you need somebody down there getting that cheap labor in. Somebody got to pick them peppers and them bananas and them potatoes and stuff. So mid to late 90s, you had a flood, and I mean a flood of workers from Mexico and South America fled into the United States, particularly into the southern states, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, North Carolina, South Carolina, a little bit of Virginia. Hell, we probably had more Mexicans here than New York had Puerto Ricans, just in North Carolina. Why was that? How was that possible? It was mainly men. They were targeting Mexican men, and they were giving them job placement and job training. The Mexicans weren't building houses in Mexico. They weren't carpenters and contractors. So where did they get those skills from? Well, they diverted some of that money that they used to give to the black men for vocation. They got rid of the vocation in the black community and directed it to the Hispanic community coming in. So that's why you see today crews of Mexicans working on houses. They're doing drywall, painting, plumbing, all kind of carpentry. These are skills they did not have. If they had them before coming here, they would have been building up Mexico. It wasn't building houses down there in Mexico. So I'm giving y'all this background. This is kind of a little monologue. Because I want to paint this picture, because I know from my experience talking to some of the millennials, they have a distorted perspective of history, recent history. And I understand it because a lot of their fathers were those baby boomers and some silent generation men, because they had a distorted sense of reality because they weren't educated. They didn't study politics. That's all brand new to them. They're articulate. I'm not saying they're dumb and baboons. They're very articulate. Many of them have some kind of skilled labor because that's what they were. But articulation in skilled labor is not intelligence. It's not education. They didn't study political science anywhere. They didn't study sociology, psychology, demographics. So when they're looking at CNN, they're being entertained, and at the same time, they're being programmed. The programming, and it's been the same all of their lives. When we switch from the Republican Party to the Democrat Party, it's still the same game. Propaganda. Get them to come out and vote for us every 4 to 8 years. And then in the interim period, it's business as usual. So whoever the black candidate is, we're going to get black people riled up for the black candidate. And I don't mean their black skin is black, but whoever black people like. At one point, it was Kennedy. Black people loved Kennedy. Remember we grew up in a house and Big Mama had 3 pictures on her wall? Who were they? Martin Luther King, Jesus, and John F. Kennedy. Am I lying? White Jesus, Martin Luther King, and John F. Kennedy was on the wall. In most Black Americans' house at that time period. But my question, and I want y'all to think about this, what has the Democratic Party done for Black people? Answer that question. Take your emotions out of it. Look at the result. Point to some legislation that was specifically for Black people. I'll wait. And please don't say affirmative action. Don't insult me. Affirmative action was benefited white women more than it did Black women. Tell the truth. And if you went to a historically Black college, we didn't get affirmative action. You only got that when you went to white schools. I don't even know nobody who got the United Negro Scholarship Fund. Where did they get those out? They put these Trojan horses in the Black community. A Trojan horse is something that looks like one thing, but it's another thing inside. For example, Planned Parenthood. They're not doing no parenthood planning. That's abortion clinics. But it sounds catchy. Fast forward to today's world. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is for LGBT people. It ain't for Black men. It ain't for Black women who want to be Black women. It's for Black women who want to be gay. That's who running it. And those Black women were married to white women. But Black Lives Matter. They went on their website. I think they've since taken it down. But right on their website, in the About Us section, we're looking to destroy, and I'm paraphrasing, the nuclear family. What does that mean? No more husbands and wives. They want wives and wives. They want to replace the husbands and wives with wives and wives. So please tell me, how does that benefit the Black community? How will we even have a Black community going forward? You need Black men to make Black families. So if you get rid of the Black man, what do you have? Well, the Bible answers that question. Menstruous women bring forth monsters. What do we have today? A bunch of monsters running around. Talk to somebody who works with these kids if you don't believe me. Talk to the teachers. Talk to people working in corrections. Talk to some of the social workers. They monsters. Just as predicted and planned. Who's leading our community? Well, we've been looking to the Democratic Party to lead and take care and look out for Black people, right? What have they done? Well, Martin Luther King said it best. I fear I've led my people into a burning house. He was right. We gave up so much during the civil rights era and got nothing in return. We lost more than we gained. So we got the right to sit next to white people in a restaurant. But we ain't got no money to go in the restaurant in the first damn place. Does that make sense? Before that, we had our own restaurants. We had our own bus lines. We had our own cab companies, our own schools, our own butchers, our own bakers, our own Black cosmetic lines. Prior to 1950, Black cosmetics, that industry was 99.9% Black owned and controlled from top to bottom. Do you know what percentage that is today? 0.001. It's reversed. Think about it. When you go buy your beauty supplies, who do you go get them from? Chinese folk. Some of us give our whole checks to Chinese people, don't even realize it. You get paid, go to the beauty supply store, get them a chunk of your money. We just seen this weekend. Women was in the beauty supply store spending hundreds of dollars. When none of them in the grocery store, but they all was at that beauty supply store. Got an Asian car, a Honda, Toyota, something like that, or Hyundai, whatever. All of them Korean, some kind of Asian car. So you're giving your car payment to them, and the finance company, most of them is backed by Chinese money and Japanese money behind the scenes. So you give your whole check to them and don't even realize it. We're the only group of people who does that. They say, the dollar is supposed to bounce somewhere between 6 to 10 times before it leaves the community. So a black person should spend their money with black people, and that money should bounce to 6 other black people before it leaves out of the community and goes to somebody else. The reality is black people get paid at 5 o'clock, and by midnight they'll get their whole check away to somebody else. That's the reality. We like catchphrases and buzzwords, and it sounds cute. Entrepreneur. That's a new buzzword that caught fire in the last 10 years, I would say. It's really caught fire. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Well, one of the cornerstones of building businesses for anybody is home ownership. So how you going to be a business owner before you got any assets to invest in your business? Home ownership is the number one way people start businesses. You borrow against the equity in the house to start a business. But we don't do that. We want to shortcut everything. As Dr. Claude Freedom said, Anderson, excuse me, Dr. Claude Anderson said, there are 5 levels of economics, 5 floors. Think about it as a building. Black people want to jump to the 3rd floor. We want to start at the 3rd floor. We don't want to build no foundation. We just want to jump and skip to the 3rd floor. And this is why we always fail in business. We don't, meaning we get a business idea, but we don't study the business. We don't educate ourselves on what do I need to do to make this business successful? Is this even a good business? I asked a young lady, this is, I guess, about 5 years ago now, if you hit the lottery and you had $1 million to invest in something, what would you do? Her answer was, I'd start my own business. I said, okay. What business would you start? Weaving lashes is what she said. I said, you got to be fucking shitting me. How sustainable do you think weaving lashes are as a business? And you're going to invest your whole $1 million in it? Yup. You ain't going. She was living in an apartment. Actually, she wasn't even living in her own apartment. She was living with a grandmother. You ain't gonna get your own house? No, I'll get that later. We do things out of order. So going back to the silent generation, they're very susceptible to notoriety and to nostalgia. So they see this Katanji, I believe her name is Katanji Brown Jackson, as historic, like almost like the moon landing. Or more recently, like Obama, quote unquote, the first black man to be a president. He's not black, but we'll have that conversation later. And then again, 2 years ago, the first black vice president. She ain't black either. Well, this time they actually got a black woman finally, but I find it funny, and this is kind of a side subject. They always find women with these ethnic names and ethnic hair. Why did they do that? But anyway, I digress. So, is the woman qualified to be a judge? Sure. My question is, was there somebody else more qualified? That's my question. I listened to her and I've read some of her writings recently, her statements, rather, not her writings, but her statements. And what she said is she wants to be a defender of the Constitution. Okay. And she wants to make sure there's equal treatment under the law. Let's analyze that part of it. By the very nature of you being where you are in this current position, is that the result of equal treatment? Or did you get bumped ahead because you fit a particular demographic? In other words, she ain't there because of her brilliant legal mind. She is brilliant. She's a very brilliant woman. And she's a Gen Xer, so I like that too. But that's not why she's there. She's there because she's black with a coochie. Let's be real about it. Biden told us what he was going to do. Well, let's dig into that a little bit deeper. So he could have just picked any black woman with a coochie, right? That's what Tucker Carlson said, and I agree with it. He could have just went and grabbed anybody. But the Democrats are very mischievous. See, we think the Democrats are on our side and the Republicans are against us. That's what we've been conditioned to think. I want y'all to think about it another way. I want you to think about it as they both on the same damn team. The Bible tells us a house divided cannot stand. Ain't that house still standing? The people's house, where they having them hearings, ain't it still up? It ain't get tore down on January 6th. It's still standing. The White House still standing too. So a house divided cannot stand. So that tells you right there, they're working together. Come on, y'all watch Law and Order. Good cop, bad cop. Y'all know that game. Good cop, bad cop. That's the game that they play, but they're working together. The average congressman is a multimillionaire. You think that's by accident? Democrat, Republican, or independent? The average congressman is a multimillionaire. Think about that. These are not representative of the people as is written in the Constitution. They're supposed to be representatives, the House of Representatives, meaning they're supposed to represent the people. They don't represent us. I don't care what color they are. So they originally wanted, let me hip you to the game. We've never had a Democratic nominee that did not win one of the first 3 primaries. It's never happened in the history of this country in, well, the 246 years that we've been a country. It's never happened until Joe Biden. Because the Democrats, the corporate Democrats, which most of them are, they were so scared of Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren fucking up their money. They were scared of that. They changed the rules. The long-term established rules and heritage of this country, they went against it and didn't blink an eye. Well, that's the same thing the Republicans do. When they don't like something, they change it. They'll tell you tradition, 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 until it's something that they don't like or it doesn't work for them, then they change it. Well, the Democrats play the same damn game. Joe Biden, not only did he not win one of those first three primaries, he didn't come in the top three. He got his ass kicked. He wasn't even campaigning. He was hiding in his basement. Let's not even talk about Kamala because she was running for president too. She didn't even come in the top five. So you got a president now, a president and a vice president who nobody voted for. So how did they get the nominee? So here we go. So Obama, because being a former president, you're still a very powerful person. Make no mistake about that. Obama got some clout. Trump still got some clout too. But Obama went in his bag of tricks and he called in some favors because he wanted to help his boy Joe. Because you ain't black if you don't vote for Joe, remember? So Obama reached out to Jim Clyburn down in South Carolina. Clyburn put that finger on the scale, and all of these ninjas down here voted for Joe. Because Jim Clyburn said, you got to vote for Joe, and he with us, and he always been with us. And right? Remember that? And they all, yeah, yes, sir, we had it. Remember? That's how Joe got the nomination in South Carolina. At the same time, Obama said to the other candidates, if y'all drop out, we're going to take care of y'all. This ain't y'all time. But we're going to take care of you. He went to all of them and said that. To Beto O'Rourke, to, what's the gay one? Mayor Pete, to Andrew Yang. They even got poor Elizabeth Warren drop out. Remember, they got Kamala to drop. All of them were like every other day somebody was dropping out. Obama did all of that. He made all of that happen. The only one that didn't drop out right away was Bernie. Right? And immediately, and I remember I talked to a bunch of baby boomers. I couldn't even believe some of the things that these baby boomers were saying to me. Well, who is Bernie Sanders anyway? I ain't never heard of him before. You ain't never heard of Bernie Sanders? Really? I said, how long have you been watching politics? Oh, I've been watching because now here comes the sign language. Shame, insults, guilt, and needing. Well, I've been watching politics before you was born. But you ain't never heard of Bernie Sanders. But some kind of way you're overly familiar with Joe Biden. Nobody knew who Joe Biden was before Obama picked him. If he wasn't really a political head, if you didn't watch politics, the only time Joe Biden got any notoriety is when Elizabeth Warren dug in his ass when he was a senator. And he was the guy who ran for president that nobody knew who he was. He ran for president 4 times. Most people don't know that because he wasn't memorable. But Obama picked him because Obama needed Pennsylvania. He needed Pennsylvania. And Joe could deliver Pennsylvania. That's why he was nominated vice president. Y'all don't remember this? So, Obama accumulated some favors now. And Clyburn cashed, said, you know what? I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that offer. I'm going to wrap this up, y'all, because my phone started to die. Yeah, I got a couple more minutes. So, Obama owed, or rather the Democratic Party owed Jim Clyburn something. So, guess what? Jim Clyburn was trying to cash his chip in. So that SCOTUS appointment came available. He tried to push his homegirl from South Carolina into that position. She's a black woman and she's a judge. Well, the problem with that is she didn't have a good record. Republicans were going to eat her up. If you thought they were hard on Ketanji, they was going to eat the other one up. I forget her name, Michelle something. There was 3 black women at the top of the candidacy or the nomination process. It was Clyburn's girl, Ketanji, and it's the girl from California. I can't remember her name. The girl from California, or excuse me, the woman, the judge from California. Let me give her flowers. The black judge from California was the most qualified, but she's also the most progressive. The corporate Democrats don't want progressives. They don't want no more Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warrens, Cory Booker's. You know, he ain't really progressive. He's more corporate. They don't want no progressives. Nancy Pelosi is tired of progressives. So, by default, Ketanji Brown was the last woman standing. Ketanji Brown Jackson. That's why we have her. And you could tell by the questions they're asking her. They're not asking her any legal questions. They asked her, what, baby's racist and stupid questions. Can you define a woman? And what's the definition of a woman? And she handled the questions marvelously. She was very good. As I expected her to be. She's a skilled lawyer. Harvard. Cream of the crop. But what I'm trying to make y'all aware of is don't get caught in the political pageant. This is a short thing. She's going through. It's not historic. This is the same game plan they ran with Kamala Harris. Oh, she was historic and she went to a black college and she was an AKA and this and that. What they didn't show you very often early on was her husband and her kids. They whipped those out after it was all said and done. But when she was running, they were very clear about the optics. Her white husband and her white kids weren't in that picture frame. Most of the time when you saw her, she was by herself. Think about what I'm saying. Optics, propaganda. When it's all said and done, they picked another corporate Democrat. That's what Ketanji is. She was a public defender at some point. Yeah, I give her that. But she's gonna toe the Democratic Party line, Joe Biden's line. What he should be focused on right now is getting rid of student loan debt and giving Americans free health care. That will do more. Those 2 things right there will do more for black people than anything else. And raising the minimum wage. That's what black and white people want. Working class people. Because see, we get so caught up in racism, right? And prejudice and bigotry, we forget about the other isms that are part of the system. And one of those isms is classism. Just because somebody got black skin don't mean they for you. Black people know your biggest enemies is in your life having the same color as you. Think about that. I may do a part 2 of this video. We'll see as the hearings go on and more things. I do need to do a part 2 because I want to bring up the Will Smith thing with the Azune Ellis, but I don't have enough charge on my phone to do that. So I will do a part 2. I'm going to go ahead and get off now. Holla at your boy. Like, subscribe, share, and donate.